Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shri R.M. Jain Group of Schools welcome you to our online learning initiative. Class 12 Economics. Let us now discuss on the credit facilities in rural areas. Growth of rural areas depends on the growth in agricultural and non-agricultural sector. Let us now see the credit facilities in rural areas. There are two sources of credit facilities provided to the farmers. One is institutional and the other one is non-institutional. Credit is essential for a farmer for buying fertilizers, pesticides, high yielding variety seeds, farm implements, etc. Hence, he needs credit from either of these institutions. These institutional credit facilities are provided by the commercial banks, development banks, and cooperative banks. They come under the government sector. These banks are owned by the government and regulated by the government. Credit is provided at a very reasonable rate of interest. Through these institutional sources. Whereas in non-institutional sources, the farmers are charged high rate of interest. Non-institutional credit consists of moneylenders, traders, relatives, and friends. They provide loan at high rate of interest and hence farmers are put in debt trap. Sometimes farmers are exploited too much that they even go to the extent of committing suicide. The problem of rural credit is twofold. Institutional credit. There are less number of banks in rural areas. Hence, it is not easily accessible for a farmer. Moreover, these institutional sources of credit demand for collateral. So the farmers prefer going to non-institutional sources of credit rather than the institutional sources of credit. But it is better for a farmer to borrow money from institutional sources of credit as the rate of interest is too low and at reasonable rate. Non-institutional sources of credit, they charge high rate of interest and they follow corrupt practices such a way they exploit the farmers. These non-institutional sources exploit the farmers. Milestones in institutional rural credit. Initially, the rural cooperative institutions, these rural cooperative institutions were assigned the role of extending credit to farmers. Later on, the government realized the importance of a public sector undertaking. Therefore, in 1955, the State Bank of India was set up. But one bank cannot fulfill the needs of the farmers. Hence, 14 banks were nationalized in 1969. So, 14 banks were nationalized in 1969. These banks not only performed their banking operations for the public, but also provided credit for rural farmers. Later on, in 1974, the regional rural banks were set up in almost all the regions or the districts. So in every district there was a regional rural bank. We call that as RRB. In 1982, NABARD was set up, National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. This bank is the apex bank for coordinating the activities of all other banks which are extending loans to the marginal farmers. Like how the Reserve Bank of India is the apex bank for other commercial banks, similarly, NABARD is the apex bank for other rural banks which provided finance to the farmers. Later on, in 1998-99, Kisan credit cards came into existence, and this is especially for the marginal farmers. And according to this scheme, farmers were provided interest at 2%. In 2014, a new scheme was launched, that is Pradhan Mantri Gram Jan Dhan Yojana was launched, and this scheme aims at motivating or encouraging the farmers to open bank account, types of loans in cooperatives. Based on the period of loans, we can classify loans into three types: short-term loans, medium-term loans, and long-term loans. Short-term loans stretched for a period of 15 months, and the farmer used the loan amount for buying fertilizers, seeds, farm implements, etc. Farm implements, etc. He also used this loan amount for his personal expenditure also. Then the medium term loans. These stretched for about 15 months to 5 years. This loan amount is used by the farmer for digging wells, for fencing his field, etc. Long period loans stretched for about 5 years, and this loan amount is utilized by the farmer for purchasing a new plot of land or to buy machinery, etc.